So let's talk in this video about the DAL abstractions. But first, let's specify what the DAL is. So DAL stands for Data Access Layer and describes the patterns we can use or the other abstractions for the database access layer. So what is the database access layer in general? We use it in software that uses n-tier architecture. So what is an n-tier architecture? We have a layer, so to speak, where we implement only things that concern with this layer. So one layer is the presentation layer, the stuff you can see as a user. Then we have the business or the application logic layer, where all of the domain specifics are introduced, and the data access layer. So why do we want to have those layers? Because over the course of the maturation of this industry, we learned that those things can be best separated. This is because they cover different aspects and have different individual patterns to best solve the issues at hand for those layers itself. So you can speak of different responsibilities and different problems or issues on those individual layers. And if we separate them with these layers, it's easier to handle all of those problems. In this course, of course, we are talking about the DAL. We are focusing on this exclusively. Why do we want to have patterns in the first place for the data access layer? Because we want to separate our implementation details, the database access technology, for example, and the actual querying. And we don't want to have the other layers cluttered, because if you would just simply use the ADO.NET wherever you want to use any database access, you would have to change it in all the places where you use it. So this is a pretty bad idea and is against the most fundamental concepts of software engineering, which is, for example, the DRY, which stands for don't repeat yourself. And also we want one concentrated and focused way, or one standardized way of accessing our data. This will help us to hide the implementation details and will increase the testability and maintainability of our software. So which are the patterns we are mostly using and which are the patterns we are using in this video or in this course? First of all, there's the DAL objects, which we will not cover here because this is something where the entity itself has the access code. This is some older stuff and it is not really recommended except for really basic domains and really easy prototyping, for example. But else it will clutter domain logic with data access logic, and this is, as I told before, mixing the layers, and that can lead to very complicated testing scenarios and very complicated domain problems later on. Then there's also the active record or active table patterns, which sort of have an access scheme for each table with accrued operations for each table individually, but nothing else. So this is done with some basic frameworks in other programming language like Ruby. The Ruby on Rails framework uses the active record extensively, but we will not cover it here because I would seldom recommend to use it with .NET Core because there's so much better technology out there. Then one pattern we will look at in this course will be the query object pattern. What does it do? It encapsulates a single query in a single object. So you can have an interface called iQuery and then just simply have it injected and use this query object with different database access technologies, for example, or different optimized code and different specifications just to change your query itself. And it's best used in simpler domains, in my opinion. Then the next thing we will cover in this course is the repository pattern. It allows for encapsulating technology and specifies everything behind a facade. This is the facade pattern all over again, if you might know this from the design patterns, and it allows for caching and adding layers on top later on when you implemented this. And we'll have the repository implementing all the CRUD operations. And also repository can bundle complex database entities into one single domain entity. So you can completely abstract the database. Then there's also the specification and unit of work patterns, which are sort of helper patterns for accessing your databases. Specification is something that will help you do more complex queries in either the repository or the query object pattern. The unit of work is some sort of transaction, but not a database transaction in that sense, but a logical transaction. So this is everything. Thank you guys for watching and see you in the next videos.